The air in Silverwood Valley always tasted of starlight and ancient earth. It was a taste Elara knew as well as her own name, a flavor that settled on her tongue from the first breath of morning until the last sigh of dusk. Her home was nestled deep within a crescent of slumbering mountains, their peaks often dusted with snow even in the warmest months, their slopes cloaked in the grand, silvery-barked trees that gave the valley its name. But it wasn't the mountains or the trees that truly defined Silverwood. It was the glow. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the western peaks, painting the sky in hues of lavender and rose, a soft ethereal radiance bloomed across the valley. This was the light of the moon petals, a unique flora that grew nowhere else in the world. Their delicate, cup-shaped blossoms, the color of spun moonlight, unfurled with the coming of twilight, emitting a gentle cool luminescence that chased away the deepest shadows. They lined the winding paths, clustered around the snug cottages, and shimmered like scattered pearls in the meadows. The entire village lived bathed in their quiet, living light, a perpetual twilight that made every night feel like a dream. Elara, with her hair the color of fallen leaves and eyes the shade of a mossy forest floor, spent most of her days tending to the moon-petal gardens near her grandmother's cottage. She knew each bloom as if it were a friend, understood the subtle shifts in their glow, the way they leaned towards the moon on clear nights, or folded tighter during a coming storm. She loved the quiet hum they made, a sound almost too faint to hear, like distant chimes carried on a breeze. But there was another sound Elara heard, one that was far more insistent, yet often dismissed by others. It was the whispering. She had heard it for as long as she could remember, a soft, persistent murmur carried on the wind that threaded its way through the silverwood trees. It wasn't the rustle of leaves, nor the sigh of the breeze through the tall grasses. It was something deeper, more ancient, a language without words that spoke directly to her heart. To her, it sounded like stories being told by the very air itself, tales of roots and stars, of forgotten streams and hidden glades. When she was very young, she would try to repeat the sounds she heard, mimicking the strange flowing cadence, but her grandmother, Lyra, would only smile gently and say, "That's just the wind, little one. The wind has many voices." Yet, Elara knew it was more. It was a presence, an invisible current of knowledge that flowed through the valley, always just beyond the grasp of ordinary hearing. She would often pause in her work, head tilted, listening intently as the whispering wove its intricate patterns around her, sometimes a mournful sigh, sometimes a joyous ripple, sometimes a curious, questioning hum. It never spoke in a way she could understand with words, but she felt its meaning, a feeling of deep connection to the living world around her. It was her secret, her special understanding, and it made the world feel vast and full of hidden wonders. One crisp autumn morning, a subtle change began to drift through Silverwood Valley, a change Elara felt before anyone else spoke of it. The moon petals. Their glow, usually so steady and comforting, seemed to waver. A few blossoms in her garden, which should have unfurled with their usual milky brilliance, remained half-closed, their light a mere flicker. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, or perhaps the cool morning air. But as the days turned into a week, the change became undeniable. The luminous trails of the glimmer moths, usually so vibrant as they danced among the moon petals, seemed duller, their light fading more quickly. The air, which once tasted of starlight, now carried a faint, almost imperceptible tang of absence, like a melody missing a keynote. The villagers began to notice, too. Whispers, real, spoken whispers this time, began to ripple through the market square. "Have you seen the Heartwood Lane moon petals? Barely a gleam. My hearthlight feels colder tonight. The children are complaining it's too dark to play after dusk." Grandmother Lyra, a woman whose face was etched with the wisdom of many seasons, and whose eyes held the same knowing sparkle as the moon petals themselves, grew quiet. She spent more time gazing out at the valley, her brow furrowed, a faint worry clouding her usually serene expression. "The light is fading, Elara," she said one evening as they sat by their window watching the muted glow of the valley. "It's never done this before, not in all my years." Elara nodded, her own heart heavy. She had noticed it most keenly of all. And the whispering, it had changed too. It was no longer a gentle murmur, but a restless, agitated hum, a worried sigh that seemed to echo the concerns of the valley. It swirled around her, more insistent, more urgent, like 100 tiny voices trying to tell her something vital, something she almost understood. She spent her days meticulously checking the moon petals, touching their cool, silky petals, trying to coax more light from them. She spoke to them in soft tones, sharing the comforting words her grandmother had taught her, but their glow remained stubbornly dim. The problem wasn't in their care. It was deeper, a sickness of the light itself. One afternoon, Elara was gathering herbs in the meadow beyond the village, her basket clutched in her hand. The sun was warm on her back, but the familiar, vibrant hum of the valley felt muted. Even the meadowlarks, usually so boisterous, sang with a subdued melody. The whispering was particularly strong here, a frantic, swirling current that tugged at her senses. It seemed to pull her towards the edge of the meadow, where the ancient silverwood trees grew thicker, darker, their branches interlacing to form a dense canopy. This was the beginning of the Whispering Woods, a place the villagers rarely ventured, deeming it too old, too wild, too full of shadows. But today, the whispering called to Elara from its depths. It wasn't a frightening call, but one of deep urgency, laced with a faint, sorrowful plea. She hesitated, remembering Grandmother Lyra's warnings about straying too far into the ancient woods. "It's easy to get lost, little one," she'd always said. "And some paths are best left untrodden." Yet, the fading light of the moon petals weighed heavily on Elara's mind. She pictured the frightened faces of the children, the worry in her grandmother's eyes. If the moon petals failed completely, Silverwood would be plunged into a darkness it had never known. The thought was chilling. Taking a deep breath, Elara clutched her basket tighter and stepped beneath the boughs of the first ancient silverwood tree. The air instantly grew cooler, the sunlight dappling through the leaves in shifting patterns of emerald and gold. The ground was soft with centuries of fallen leaves, smelling of damp earth and rich decay. Here, the whispering was no longer just a distant hum. It was all around her, a chorus of soft, sighing voices that seemed to weave through every branch, every root, every stone. It felt like the forest itself was breathing, speaking to her. The sounds were more distinct now, not words, but patterns, inflections, like waves breaking on a distant shore, each one carrying a fragment of a story. She closed her eyes, letting the sounds wash over her, trying to decipher their meaning. Flicker, fade, deep, sleep, lost, light. These were not words she heard, but impressions, feelings, images that sparked in her mind. It felt like the forest was showing her a picture, a memory. She saw a deep, shimmering pool of light, then saw it slowly dim, like a dying ember. Then an image of something hidden, buried deep, waiting. The whispering guided her, not with a forceful push, but a gentle, insistent tug, like an invisible thread unwinding before her. She moved deeper into the woods, her steps light and sure, her heart beating with a mix of apprehension and exhilaration. She noticed things she had never seen before on the edges of the woods. Strange, bioluminescent moss clinging to the bark of trees, glowing with a soft green light. Tiny, iridescent beetles scuttling across fallen logs, leaving trails of faint sparkle. The magic here was different, wilder, more ancient than the cultivated glow of the moon petals. She walked for what felt like a long time, though the woods seemed to warp time, making moments stretch and contract. The path, if it could be called that, was faint, almost swallowed by moss and tangled roots. The whispering grew louder, more focused, leading her towards a particular point. Eventually, the trees began to thin slightly, revealing a small hidden clearing. It was unlike any other part of the woods she had seen. In its center stood a single enormous silverwood tree, its trunk wider than 3 cottages, its branches reaching skyward as if trying to embrace the heavens. Its bark, instead of the usual silvery gray, shimmered with a faint internal iridescence, like mother of pearl. Around its base, the ground was covered not in moss but in a carpet of tiny crystalline flowers that pulsed with a faint inner light, mimicking miniature stars. This was the Heartwood Grove, a place spoken of in hushed tones by the elders, a place of legend, said to be the oldest, most sacred spot in the valley. Grandmother Lyra had once told her that the Heartwood tree was the very first silverwood, the root of all the valley's magic, but that no one had seen it in centuries, not since the old paths faded. Elara approached the colossal tree with a sense of awe. The whispering here was deafening, a symphony of ancient voices swirling around her, seeming to emanate from the tree itself. It hummed and thrummed, vibrating through the very ground beneath her feet. She placed her hand on the shimmering bark, feeling a faint warmth, a slow, steady pulse beneath her palm. The whispering sharpened, coalescing into a single, insistent pull. It led her around the vast circumference of the tree, past roots thicker than she was tall, until she reached a small, almost imperceptible opening at its base. It wasn't a cave, but a natural hollow, draped with strands of the crystalline flowers, their light drawing her in. Hesitantly, Elara ducked her head and stepped inside. The hollow was small, circular, and surprisingly bright, illuminated by the glowing crystals that covered its walls and ceiling. In the center, cradled by ancient roots that had grown around it like protective arms, lay a stone. But it was unlike any stone Elara had ever seen. It was roughly spherical, about the size of her head, and made of what looked like pure, solidified moonlight. It pulsed with a soft, steady glow, far brighter than any moon petal, yet also strangely muted. This was the Heartstone. Grandmother Lyra had told her stories of it, of the ancient source of Silverwood's light and magic. But the stories said it shone with a blinding brilliance, casting light throughout the entire valley from its hidden location. This stone, while beautiful, was pale, its light struggling, like a breath held too long. As Elara knelt before it, the whispering surged again, seeming to emanate directly from the Heartstone itself. This time, the patterns of sound were clearer, more vivid. She heard not just the fading, but a longing, a deep, ancient sorrow. And then, a new pattern emerged, one she had never heard before. A complex melodic sequence of tones, almost like a song, repeated over and over. Hear, seek, sing, return. Again, not words, but powerful impressions. The whispering was telling her something crucial. It was directing her, giving her instructions. She reached out a tentative hand, hovering it just above the Heartstone's surface. A faint warmth radiated from it, and a ripple of the whispering passed through her, an infusion of ancient energy that made her hair stand on end and her skin tingle. As her hand drew closer, a faint, almost invisible shimmer pulsed on the stone's surface. It was a pattern, intricate and delicate, a series of swirling lines that coalesced into a symbol she didn't recognize, yet felt strangely familiar. It was a spiral, interwoven with what looked like tiny shimmering wings. The whispering continued its rhythmic melodic sequence. Hear, seek, sing, return, and as it did, the symbol on the Heartstone pulsed in time with it, as if emphasizing a key part of the message. Elara felt a sudden, profound understanding blossom in her heart. The moon petals were fading because the Heartstone's light was dimming. And the whispering, the ancient voice of the valley, was not just lamenting the loss, but guiding her, urging her to find a way to restore it. The symbol, the song, the very urgency of the whispering, it was all a plea, a direction. She didn't know what the symbol meant, or what she was meant to seek or sing, but she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that this was her path. The quiet girl who heard the wind's secrets was now being called to listen closer than ever before, to follow the whispering into the unknown, to find the lost light. The valley of Silverwood, her home, depended on it. And as she sat there, bathed in the soft fading glow of the Heartstone, the whispering continued its ancient song, ready to guide her next step. Elara felt the ancient song resonate through her very being, a melody woven from starlight and forgotten dreams. It wasn't a sound heard with her ears, but a feeling, a shimmering current that flowed directly into her heart, guiding her with an undeniable certainty. The soft glow of the Heartstone pulsed once more, a final blessing, then dimmed, leaving the chamber in its familiar gentle twilight. She rose, her limbs feeling light yet grounded, as if the earth itself had lent her strength. Her small satchel, usually filled with herbs or sketches of wildflowers, suddenly felt inadequate. What did one pack for a journey into the unknown, to seek a lost light? Returning to her small cottage, nestled beside a murmuring brook at the edge of the village, Elara moved with a quiet purpose. Her mother, a woman with eyes as deep and warm as a summer evening, was stirring a pot of fragrant stew over the hearth. The rich scent of roasted root vegetables and wild mushrooms usually brought a comforting peace, but tonight, Elara felt a different kind of calm. "Elara, my little wind listener," her mother said without turning, her voice soft as velvet. "The Heartstone has called to you, hasn't it?" Elara stopped, surprised. She hadn't said a word. "How did you know, Mama?" Her mother finally turned, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. A mother always knows when her child's path begins to unfold. And the Heartstone. It has been growing fainter these past seasons, Elara. We all feel it. The quiet draining away from the streams. The reluctance of the blossoms to unfurl fully. The whispering has been stirring in the valley for weeks, seeking its listener. She walked over, her hand gently cupping Elara's cheek. "It seems it has found her." Elara leaned into the touch, a silent acknowledgement. I don't know where I'm going, Mama, or what I'm meant to find." "You need not know the destination, child, only the next step. The whispering will guide you," her mother reassured her, her eyes holding both a deep worry and an unwavering faith. "Take your warmest cloak, and these." She handed Elara a small leather-bound pouch filled with dried fruits, nut cakes, and a tiny phial of clear, shimmering water. "For strength and thirst. And this," she added, pressing a small, smooth river stone, worn smooth by countless seasons, into Elara's palm, "a piece of silverwood. So you never forget your way home, and that we are waiting for you." Elara clutched the stone, its familiar coolness a balm to her racing heart. She embraced her mother tightly, feeling the warmth and love that would sustain her far beyond the valley's embrace. "I will come back, Mama, with the light." "I know you will, my heart," her mother whispered, a tear escaping her eye. "Now go. The dawn will be here soon, and the path awaits no one." With a final lingering look at her home, Elara stepped out into the cool night air. The village was still asleep, bathed in the soft, fading glow of the Heartstone's last remnants. The familiar outlines of cottages and sleepy trees were a comfort, but the call of the unknown was stronger. The whispering was a soft hum now, a subtle vibration in the air, pulling her towards the eastern edge of the valley, where the ancient, gnarled trees of the Whispering Woods began. This forest was legendary, spoken of in hushed tones around hearth fires, a place where paths shifted, shadows danced with their own intentions, and the very air held secrets that could bewilder the unwary. As she left the last familiar trail, the sounds of Silverwood faded behind her. The gentle gurgle of the brook, the distant call of a nightingale, all were replaced by the rustle of leaves that seemed to whisper her name, the sigh of branches that swayed with an unseen current. This was the true domain of the whispering, not just a metaphor, but a living, breathing presence that now enveloped her. Elara paused at the threshold of the woods, a tremor of apprehension running through her. The trees loomed, ancient and massive, their branches interwoven like a tangled skein of dark thoughts. Yet beneath the apprehension, a spark of resolve ignited. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, letting the wind flow around her, through her. She remembered her mother's words, "You need not know the destination, only the next step." "One day, Kent." The whispering responded, not with a sound, but with a gentle shift in the air, a subtle coolness against her left cheek, urging her forward. She opened her eyes and stepped into the shadowy embrace of the Whispering Woods. The forest immediately became a labyrinth of senses. The air grew damp and heavy, carrying the scent of damp earth, ancient moss, and something else, a faint, sweet, almost dizzying aroma that she couldn't quite place. Sunlight, what little there was, struggled to penetrate the dense canopy, dappling the forest floor in shifting patterns that played tricks on her eyes. The path, if it could be called that, was faint, often disappearing entirely beneath a carpet of fallen leaves or a tangle of roots. But Elara didn't rely on sight alone. She listened. Not just with her ears, but with her skin, her very spirit. The whispering manifested as a series of subtle cues, a sudden gust of wind that parted a curtain of vines, revealing a hidden passage, a faint, silvery shimmer on the bark of a particular tree, indicating the direction she should take, a quiet hum in the forest floor beneath her feet, guiding her away from boggy patches or crumbling earth. Hours turned into what felt like days within the wood's timeless embrace. Elara pressed on, her initial apprehension slowly replaced by a growing sense of wonder and a deep connection to the forest itself. She learned to differentiate between the true whispering and the myriad other sounds of the woods, the chittering of unseen creatures, the deceptive echoes of her own footsteps, the mischievous rustle of leaves that tried to lure her off course. One afternoon, As the forest floor became increasingly shadowed, despite the sun being high, Elara found herself in a particularly dense section. The trees here were older, their trunks wider than any she had seen, their bark deeply furrowed with the marks of centuries. Patches of luminescent moss glowed faintly on their surfaces, casting an ethereal greenish light that seemed to pulse with a hidden life. Suddenly, a strange tinkling laugh echoed through the trees, light and airy, yet with an underlying mischievousness. A small glowing orb, no bigger than her fist, darted through the air ahead of her, weaving in and out of the branches, beckoning her deeper. It pulsed with a captivating soft blue light. Elara felt an immediate pull, a childish desire to follow the dancing light. But then, the true whispering manifested as a sudden sharp chill that ran through her, a warning. She closed her eyes, focusing on the subtle currents of the wind. The blue orb, though beautiful, felt discordant, a false note in the forest song. The true wind, her wind, tugged gently to her right, away from the glittering decoy. She opened her eyes. The blue orb paused, as if realizing it had been discovered, then darted away with another tinkling laugh, disappearing into the shadows. Elara understood. The whispering woods were not just a physical barrier, but a test of her senses, her intuition, her ability to discern truth from illusion. She continued, following the true guidance, her steps surer now. The air grew heavier, infused with an ancient, almost sorrowful scent, like rain on old stone. The trees here were truly immense, their roots snaking across the forest floor like slumbering serpents. Their branches, thick as lesser trees, were draped with long silvery gray moss that hung like ancient beards, swaying gently even in the stillest air. The whispering grew stronger, a persistent thrumming that vibrated in her bones, leading her deeper into the heart of this ancient grove. She pushed through a curtain of shimmering vines, their leaves a deep, velvety purple, and stepped into a clearing. It wasn't a glade bathed in sunlight, but a place of profound twilight, even at midday. In the center stood a tree unlike any she had ever seen. It was colossal, its trunk wider than her cottage, its bark a swirling tapestry of greens and grays, imbued with an inner luminescence that seemed to emanate from its very core. Its branches reached towards the heavens, but its leaves, thousands upon thousands, were not green, but a shimmering silver, perpetually trembling, as if weeping silent tears. From these leaves, a soft melancholy music seemed to issue, a rustling whisper that was both mournful and profoundly beautiful. This was not a weeping willow of sorrow, but a weeping tree of memory, she instinctively knew, holding the echoes of forgotten ages. At the base of the tree, its roots formed a natural alcove, within which sat a figure. It was ancient, so ancient, that its form was almost indistinguishable from the gnarled wood around it. Its skin was like bark, its hair like moss, and its eyes, when they slowly opened, were like pools of deep, still water, reflecting the silver leaves above. This was no ordinary creature. This was a guardian, a sentinel of the woods, awakened by her presence. The guardian did not speak with words, but with a presence that filled the glade, a quiet hum that resonated with the whispering. Elara felt a wave of images wash over her mind, flashes of the valley of Silverwood in its former glory, vibrant and bright, then slowly dimming, the colors fading, the sounds growing muted. She saw ancient hands tending to a brilliant, pulsing light, the original Heartstone perhaps, or something even older. Then she saw shadows, tendrils of cold, creeping stillness, reaching out from a distant, desolate land, slowly eclipsing the light, draining the life from the land. The images faded, replaced by a feeling of profound sadness, then a question unspoken but clear. What do you seek, little one, in this time of fading? I count your name. Elara, though overwhelmed by the intensity of the communion, found her voice, soft but clear. I seek the lost light, the light that is fading from my home, from Silverwood. The whispering brought me here. The guardian's ancient eyes seemed to peer into her very soul. Another wave of images flowed into her mind, a vision of a single fragile flame flickering in a vast darkness, surrounded by crystalline shards. Then the vision shifted to a mountain, impossibly tall, its peak lost in swirling clouds, and a single winding path leading upward. Telite is not lost, child, only hidden, the guardian's presence communicated. Kit retreated when the shadow began to spread, splintering itself into fragments to preserve its essence. One such fragment, the heartstone of your valley, still glows, though dimly. The true source, the heart of all light, lies beyond this forest, beyond the peaks of the Frostfang Mountains, in a place touched by the first dawn. It is shielded by ancient magic, and guarded by the spirits of the deep earth. And in one turned away, Retania, Anikans, Asatedine. Elara felt a thrill of both hope and terror. Frostfang Mountains, a formidable range, rumored to be home to ice giants and treacherous blizzards. How do I find it? How do I bring it back? The Guardian's gaze softened, a faint ripple disturbing the pools of its eyes. Daylight cannot be taken, only invited. It responds to the purest intent, to a song forgotten, to a spirit that carries the essence of the fading world, yet holds hope within its core. You, wind listener, carry such a spirit. The whispering will not guide you with a direct path, but with clues, with feelings, with the truth of the wind. Listen, closer than ever before. Your song will be found along the way. Then the Guardian extended a gnarled hand, its fingers like ancient roots. From its palm, a single silver leaf, shimmering with the same ethereal light as the tree's foliage, detached itself and floated gently towards Elara. As it settled into her outstretched hand, she felt a surge of warmth, a clarity that sharpened her senses. The leaf was cool, yet pulsed with a gentle inner light, no brighter than a firefly, but steady and unwavering. This leaf is a fragment of the tree's memory, a compass for the heart. When you are truly lost, it will show you the path of truth, not illusion. It will hum the ancient song, a faint echo, to remind you of your purpose. And Yamchi. As the light of the leaf settled into her palm, the Guardian's eyes slowly closed, its form once again merging seamlessly with the ancient roots of the weeping tree of memory. The glade grew still, save for the soft, melancholic rustle of the silver leaves. Elara stood there for a long moment, the silver leaf glowing softly in her hand, its light a beacon in the perpetual twilight. The whispering, which had been so strong in the glade, now felt different. It was no longer a pull into the forest, but a gentle push, westward, towards the faint glimmer of a distant snow-capped peak she could just perceive through a break in the canopy. Taking a deep breath, Elara turned, clutching the silver leaf and the river stone from Silverwood. She pushed through the shimmering purple vines, leaving the ancient glade and its silent guardian behind. The forest seemed to part for her now, the deceptive whispers and mischievous lights gone, replaced by a clear, undeniable path. The trees still rustled, but now their song felt supportive, encouraging. Soon, the whispering woods began to thin. The air grew colder, crisper, carrying the scent of pine and distant snow. The ground started to slope upwards, and the towering ancient trees gave way to hardier evergreens, their branches laden with snow from an earlier fall. Elara emerged from the last of the deep woods onto a high mountain pass, a vast open expanse stretching before her. The sun, though low, shone with a brilliant, blinding light off the snow-covered landscape. Before her, majestically looming against the pale blue sky, stood the Frostfang Mountains, a formidable wall of jagged peaks, their summits piercing the clouds. The whispering was a powerful current here, a strong wind whipping through her hair, tugging at her cloak, carrying the scent of ice and ancient stone. It pointed directly towards the highest, most formidable peak, a titan of rock and ice that seemed to touch the very heavens. Elara looked back at the receding green of the whispering woods, then forward at the daunting challenge of the mountains. Her heart hammered, but it was no longer solely with fear. There was a burgeoning courage there, a quiet determination fueled by the Guardian's words, and the unwavering guidance of the whispering. The lost light was not a myth, not a dream. It was real, hidden, and awaiting her song. The path ahead was perilous, but she was no longer just the quiet girl from Silverwood. She was Elara, the wind listener, carrying the hope of her valley, and the silver leaf of memory, into the heart of the frosted peaks. The next step, though daunting, was clear: she must climb. The next step, though daunting, was clear: she must climb. The first rays of dawn, sharp and brittle, pierced the gloom, painting the jagged peaks in hues of amethyst and rose. Elara stood at the foot of the Silverwood range, her breath misting in the frigid air. Above her, The mountain rose like a colossal, sleeping beast, its flanks draped in ancient snows and glittering ice, its highest reaches lost in swirls of cloud. The air hummed with a different kind of silence here, a vast echoing quiet that pressed in on her ears, broken only by the whisper of the wind, her constant companion. She took a deep breath, the cold air stinging her lungs, and clutched the silver leaf in her hand. It felt warm, a tiny ember of hope against the encroaching chill. The guardian's words echoed, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it," and the whispering, ever present, seemed to stir out her, a gentle caress on her cheek, urging her onward. The initial ascent was a brutal test of endurance. The lower slopes were treacherous, a mix of loose scree and patches of slick hidden ice. Every step was a deliberate act, a negotiation with the mountain. Her muscles burned, her lungs ached, but she pushed through, remembering the guardian's rigorous training, the countless hours spent scaling the smaller, less forbidding cliffs around Silverwood Valley. She found purchase where none seemed to exist, her fingers aching as they sought out tiny crevices in the rock, her boots finding purchase on the smallest ledges. As she gained altitude, the landscape transformed. The scattered pines gave way to gnarled, frost-dusted junipers, clinging stubbornly to the rock face. Soon, even these hardy trees vanished, replaced by an austere world of rock and ice. Great crystalline formations, sharp as dragon's teeth, jutted from the cliffs. Glaciers, ancient and blue, flowed silently down valleys, their surfaces reflecting the sky like polished mirrors. The wind, no longer a gentle caress, became a fierce sculptor, carving intricate patterns into the snowdrifts and whistling through the narrow ravines with a mournful cry. It was in these higher reaches that her true gift became essential. The whispering was no longer just a comfort, it was her guide. It spoke to her through the currents and eddies of the mountain air, a language understood only by her. A subtle shift in the wind's direction would warn her of an unstable snow bridge ahead. A sudden gust, almost playful, would nudge her towards a hidden path, a series of handholds obscured by shadow. She learned to read the swirling patterns of snow, to feel the vibrations of the mountain through her feet, discerning solid rock from treacherous ice. One afternoon, a sudden squall descended, a whiteout that swallowed the world in an instant. Snow lashed at her face, blinding her, and the wind howled like a hungry wolf, threatening to tear her from the cliff face. Fear, cold and sharp, clawed at her throat. She pressed herself against the icy rock, struggling to breathe, the weight of the valleys a sudden heavy burden. "I can't," she whispered, her voice lost in the storm's fury. But then, the whispering surged around her, not as a sound, but as an embrace, a strengthening current that seemed to flow right through her, not just past her. It reminded her of the ancient lullabies of Silverwood, the feeling of safety and belonging. And in that moment, a tiny flicker of defiance ignited within her. She closed her eyes, not against the storm, but to listen more deeply. The chaos of the wind was still there, but beneath it, she felt a subtle current, a steady flow, like an underground river beneath a raging sea. It was the mountain's own breath, a path through the tempest. Slowly, carefully, guided by that inner current, she began to move again, inch by painstaking inch. The storm raged, but she moved with it, not against it, her body a pliant reed bending to its will, yet always progressing. When the squall finally broke, hours later, she found herself not lost, but on a narrow, sheltered ledge, overlooking a breathtaking vista. Below her, the clouds parted like a stage curtain, revealing a sprawling basin filled with ancient petrified trees, their branches encased in shimmering ice, sparkling under the faint starlight that had begun to pierce the clearing sky. It was a place of eerie frozen beauty, a silent forest of crystal. This was the glacier wood, the whispering seemed to confirm. A place of ancient magic, a threshold. As she descended into the glacier wood, the silence deepened, broken only by the crunch of her boots on the hard snow. The crystal trees pulsed with a faint, internal luminescence, casting long fractured shadows. It was a world utterly unlike Silverwood, yet it held a profound, quiet majesty. She felt a profound sense of reverence, as if she were walking through a dream. Deep within the glacier wood, she encountered her first true inhabitants of the peaks. They were not creatures of flesh and blood, but beings woven from the very essence of the mountain, the ice sprites. Small, shimmering figures, no larger than her hand, they flitted between the crystal trees, their bodies translucent, their laughter like the tinkling of icicles. They were playful, curious, and at first wary of her. One sprite, bolder than the rest, hovered close, its tiny glowing eyes studying her with intense curiosity. It darted around her, tugging playfully at a strand of her hair, then at the silver leaf clutched in her hand. The leaf, responding to its touch, glowed a little brighter. Elara, remembering the guardian's advice to respect all creatures of the wild, knelt slowly, offering a small dried berry she'd brought from Silverwood. The sprite hesitated, then took the berry, its tiny fingers surprisingly delicate. A chorus of chimes, like 1,000 tiny bells, erupted from the other sprites, and they began to swirl around her, performing an intricate aerial dance. The sprites, it turned out, were the memory keepers of the peaks, guardians of the ancient ice. They communicated not with words, but with images and feelings, projected directly into her mind. They showed her visions of the mountain through countless seasons, of glaciers moving like slow blue rivers, of stars falling like diamonds into the snow. And then, a more recent memory. A faint, golden light, emanating from somewhere deep within the highest peaks. A light that had dimmed, then vanished, leaving a sorrowful echo in the sprite's collective consciousness. They led her deeper, into the glacier wood, to a clearing where a magnificent, ancient ice cavern yawned open. Its entrance was like the maw of a sleeping dragon, rimmed with jagged icicles that dripped with a slow, rhythmic implink, plinkwin. Inside, the cavern walls were a tapestry of blues and whites, swirling patterns of frozen water. The sprites indicated with their shimmering forms that this was a place of passage, a way to the heart of the cold. But before she could enter, a new presence made itself known. A low growl rumbled from the shadows at the back of the cavern, a sound that vibrated through the very ice beneath her feet. Out of the gloom emerged a creature of immense power and beauty, a great frost panther. Its fur was the color of fresh snow, its eyes 2 pools of molten silver, and its movements were liquid grace. It was larger than any creature she had ever seen, its muscles rippling beneath its pristine coat. The sprites scattered, their tinkling chimes turning to frightened whispers. The panther regarded Elara with an intensity that made her heart pound. This was no playful sprite. This was a sentinel, an ancient guardian of this sacred place. Its gaze was not overtly hostile, but it was testing, assessing. She stood her ground, her hand still clutching the silver leaf, her breath held. The guardian's words came to her again. True courage is not fearlessness, but facing fear with an open heart. She met the panther's silver gaze, not with aggression, but with respect, a quiet acknowledgement of its power. The whispering stirred, flowing around the panther, then around Elara, connecting them in an unseen current. It seemed to speak of peace, of shared guardianship. The panther lowered its head slightly, a gesture that Elara instinctively understood as a challenge, a test of her intent. She knew she couldn't fight such a creature. She also knew she couldn't simply walk past it. The lost light awaited her song. Perhaps the song was not just for the light itself, but for the journey, for the beings she encountered. Taking a deep breath, Elara began to sing. Her voice, at first, was a soft hum, a low melody that resonated with the silence of the cavern. It was a song of Silverwood, a melody of green valleys and gentle streams, of starlight filtering through leaves, of the warmth of hearth and home. As she sang, the silver leaf in her hand pulsed with a gentle light, casting dancing reflections on the icy walls. The frost panther remained still, its silver eyes fixed on her. But something in its posture softened, its massive head tilting slightly, as if listening intently. The air in the cavern seemed to thicken, imbued with the magic of her voice. She sang of her purpose, of the hope she carried for her valley, of the dimming light in the world, and her quest to rekindle it. She poured her heart into the melody, allowing her vulnerability, her determination, and her longing to flow through her voice. As her song reached its crescendo, the panther let out a low, rumbling purr, a sound that was both powerful and oddly comforting. It rose slowly, stretching its magnificent form, then turned and padded deeper into the cavern, its silver eyes glancing back at her, an unspoken invitation. It was not a dismissal, but an acceptance. With a surge of renewed courage, Elara followed, the ice sprites tentatively re-emerging from their hiding places, their chimes now a soft chorus of encouragement. The cavern opened into a vast shimmering chamber, its ceiling a dome of impossibly clear ice, through which the stars could be seen, sharp and brilliant, even in the faint light filtering from the entrance. At the center of the chamber stood an ancient structure, a colossal pillar of ice, intricately carved with symbols and runes that seemed to glow with an inner, faint blue light. It was not a natural formation, but a relic of a lost civilization, an altar perhaps, or a monument. The frost panther settled at its base, its head resting on its paws, its silver eyes watching her. The pillar was covered in frost, but as Elara approached, a section of the ice seemed to recede, revealing a smooth, polished surface. Intricate carvings were etched into the ice, depicting ancient figures, celestial maps, and a recurring symbol, a radiating star, similar to the one the Guardian had described, but dimmed, as if its light had gone out. The whispering urged her closer. She reached out, her fingers tracing the cold, smooth lines of the star. As she did, the silver leaf in her hand began to vibrate intensely, and the symbol on the pillar pulsed with a brighter blue light. Suddenly, a faint image flickered into her mind, projected from the pillar itself, or perhaps from the whispering amplified by the ancient magic of the place. It was a fragment, a memory, a figure standing atop the highest peak, holding aloft a glowing orb, radiating pure golden light. Then, a sudden, blinding flash, followed by darkness and a feeling of profound loss. The image faded, leaving behind a deep chill in her heart. The pillar, however, offered more than just a memory. As the blue light pulsed, the runes around the star symbol began to glow, one by one, illuminating a short cryptic verse. Elara, who had learned the ancient script from the Guardian, painstakingly deciphered it. Where the three winds meet and sing, the heart of crystal waits to bring the truth of shadow, light's true spring. But only she who knows the song can claim what was lost for too long. The three winds, the heart of crystal. These were new clues, new mysteries. The lost light was not just beyond the peaks, it was connected to something deeper, something within the very structure of the mountain itself. And her song was not merely a way to find it, but the key to unlocking it. The frost panther stirred, rising to its feet. It moved to the side of the pillar, nudging a section of the ice with its nose. Here, another passage opened, a narrow tunnel descending deeper into the mountain's heart. The air flowing from it was colder, carrying a faint metallic scent she couldn't quite place. The panther looked at her, then at the passage, then back at her, its silver eyes conveying a silent message. This is the way. But it is a way you must travel alone. Elara understood. The climb had been a test of her physical endurance and her connection to the whispering. The glacier wood and the frost panther had tested her courage and her heart. Now the path ahead promised a trial of a different kind, a journey into the very core of the mountain, where the ancient secrets lay buried. The heart of crystal sounded like a place of immense power, and potentially immense danger. She looked back at the glowing pillar, at the enigmatic verse, then down the dark, inviting passage. The silver leaf pulsed steadily in her hand, a warm beacon. She was no longer just the quiet girl from Silverwood. She was Elara, the wind listener, the singer of ancient songs, carrying the hope of her valley and the silver leaf of memory into the heart of the frosted peaks. The lost light awaited, and the next step, though descending into darkness, was clear. She must find the three winds and the heart of crystal. The lost light awaited, and the next step, though descending into darkness, was clear. She must find the three winds and the heart of crystal. The passage was not merely dark. It was a hungry, ancient blackness that seemed to swallow sound and light alike. Only the silver leaf in Elara's hand offered a gentle, unwavering luminescence, casting dancing shadows that stretched and shrank like phantom limbs along the rough-hewn walls. The air grew colder, heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, a faint, sweet aroma of forgotten blooms, like a whisper of spring trapped in winter's icy grip. Each step descended deeper into the earth, the path spiraling downwards, sometimes widening into small, echoing chambers, sometimes narrowing to a tight squeeze between jagged rocks. Elara pressed on, her hand brushing against damp moss and smooth, cold stone. The silence was profound, broken only by the soft scrape of her boots and the steady thrum of her own heartbeat. Yet, even in the silence, she listened. She strained her ears, not for physical sound, but for the subtle currents of air, the unseen breath of the mountain itself. After what felt like an age, the passage opened into a vast cavernous space. The silver leaf's light, though persistent, was swallowed by the sheer immensity of it. Yet Elara could discern faint glimmerings in the distance, tiny, ethereal sparks that drifted like fireflies in the gloom. They pulsed with a gentle, icy blue light, drawing her forward. As she drew closer, the sparks resolved into swirling columns of shimmering air, each one distinct, each radiating a palpable energy. These were no ordinary breezes. They were living entities, woven from the very fabric of the mountain's breath. 3 of them stood before her, immense and silent, like sentinels guarding an ancient secret. The first column of air, to her left, was a fierce, restless vortex, humming with a low, deep growl. It crackled with an almost visible energy, like static electricity dancing on frosted glass. This, she knew instinctively, was the north wind, the keeper of secrets, the bringer of blizzards and clarity. The second, in the center, was a gentle, undulating current, soft and warm, carrying the faint scent of wild mint and distant rain. It swirled with a luminous, pearlescent glow, like moonlight filtering through mist. This was the west wind, the weaver of dreams, the whisperer of forgotten melodies. The third, to her right, was a swift, elusive stream, almost invisible, yet she felt its presence as a tingling rush against her skin, a fleeting touch of something ancient and swift. It pulsed with a quick, silver-blue light, like a fleeting glimpse of a distant star. This was the east wind, the bringer of change, the guardian of time's arrow. Elara approached the north wind first, her heart thrumming. As she drew near, the air grew intensely cold, biting at her exposed skin. A deep, resonant voice, like the grinding of glaciers, echoed from within the swirling column. Who dares trespass in the realm of Boreas, the unyielding? What knowledge do you seek, and what truth do you bring? Elara, though trembling, stood firm. She held up the silver leaf. I am Elara from Silverwood Valley. I seek the lost light and the heart of crystal. The truth I bring is the truth of fading memory, of a valley whose light grows dim, whose stories are forgotten. The north wind's roar softened to a profound rumble. Memory, yes, a fragile thing, easily lost, hard to reclaim. To pass my gate, you must answer my riddle, a riddle of clarity and truth. What is it that lives without breath? Speaks without a tongue, and sees without eyes, yet holds the deepest wisdom. Elara closed her eyes, listening not with her ears, but with her spirit. She felt the cold, sharp truth of the north wind, the way it stripped away illusions. She thought of the mountain itself, silent, ancient, watching. She thought of the stars, distant and knowing. Then her gaze fell to the silver leaf in her hand, pulsating steadily. It was not alive in the way a creature was, yet it held the essence of a living memory. It spoke through her, through its presence, and it saw through the eyes of those who carried it. She opened her eyes. It is memory, she said, her voice clear and strong. Memory lives within us, without needing breath. It speaks to us in whispers and images, without a physical tongue. It sees the past through our minds, without eyes, yet it holds the deepest wisdom of all things lived and learned. The north wind paused, its furious swirl calming slightly. Indeed, it boomed, the sound less harsh now. Memory, the foundation of truth. You have answered well, Elara of Silverwood. My path is open to you, but beware, the journey ahead demands not just knowledge but heart. With a final deep sigh, the north wind's column of air parted, revealing a narrow passage beyond. Elara bowed her head in thanks, and moved towards the west wind. As she approached, the air around the second column grew warm and soft, filled with a gentle melodic hum that resonated deep within her chest. The pearlescent glow intensified, swirling with iridescent colors, soft greens, blues, and lavenders, like the inside of a seashell. A voice, like the sigh of a summer breeze through tall grasses, whispered around her. Child of the valley, what dreams do you carry? What song does your heart sing? Elara felt an urge to weep, a sudden surge of longing for the familiar comfort of her valley, for the faces of her family and friends. The west wind, she realized, touched the deepest emotions. "I carry the dream of light restored," she replied, her voice soft but unwavering. "The song my heart sings is for the forgotten ones, for the memories lost, for the warmth that has faded from my home." She held up the silver leaf once more, its light seeming to glow with a softer, more compassionate hue here. "This leaf carries a memory, a precious one. It connects me to all that has been and all that might yet be." The west wind's whispers grew more insistent, swirling around her like a comforting embrace. Compassion, empathy, connection. These are the threads of dreams. But the path to the heart of crystal is fraught with shadows of despair. To pass my gate, you must sing a song not of what is, but of what A was, and of what A could be. A song that heals the heart, even when hope flickers. Elara closed her eyes again, letting the west wind's gentle touch guide her. She thought of her grandmother's stories, of the ancient songs of Silverwood, songs of blooming meadows, and the gentle murmur of the river. She thought of the light that once shone so brightly, a memory passed down through generations. And then she thought of the future, of the light returning, of children playing under its warm glow. She began to sing. Her voice, usually quiet and hesitant, now flowed with a surprising strength and clarity, carried by the west wind's currents. It was an ancient melody, one she had only ever hummed. But now the words came to her, a lullaby of hope and resilience. She sang of the first sunrise over Silverwood, of the laughter of its people, of the vibrant colors of its flowers, all touched by the lost light. And then she wove in a new verse, a hopeful refrain, of the light returning, of the valley awakening, of memories blossoming anew. As her song filled the cavern, the west wind's pearlescent glow brightened, swirling faster, weaving her melody into its very essence. The air grew warm, comforting, banishing the last vestiges of cold. When her song finished, a wave of profound peace washed over her. "Beautiful, Elara of Silverwood," the west wind whispered, its voice filled with reverence. "Your heart is true, your song a balm. You have carried the dreams and woven them with hope. My path is open to you. But be warned, the journey ahead demands not just heart, but courage to face the unknown." The west wind's column rippled and parted, revealing a second passage, leading further into the depths. Elara felt lighter, more confident. She took a deep breath, fortified by the north wind's truth and the west wind's warmth, and approached the east wind. The east wind was different from the others. It wasn't a visible column, but rather a shimmering distortion in the air, a constant, swift movement that seemed to dance just beyond her perception. It hummed with a high-pitched, almost imperceptible frequency, like the distant ringing of bells. It radiated a profound sense of urgency, of time constantly flowing forward. The silver-blue light pulsed with an impatient rhythm. A voice, sharp and fleeting, like a sudden gust that snatches leaves from branches, spoke to her. "Child of fleeting moments, what courage do you possess? Are you ready to face what lies ahead and what you must leave behind?" Elara felt a sudden chill, a premonition that this wind would demand the most. "I possess the courage of my valley's hope," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I am ready to face what lies ahead for the sake of the light, and if I must leave something behind, I pray it is only the darkness." The east wind swirled around her, faster now, a whirlwind of invisible forces tugging at her clothes, at her very spirit. The path to the heart of crystal is a path of sacrifice, of embracing the unknown. To pass my gate, you must look into the eye of time and choose your truth. Will you cling to the fading past, or embrace the uncertain future? Suddenly, the swirling air before her coalesced into a shimmering mirror-like surface. It pulsed with the silver-blue light of the east wind, and within its depths, Elara saw images flicker. She saw Silverwood Valley as it was now, dim and muted, the colors faded, the people moving with a quiet resignation. Then the image shifted, showing her glimpses of her past, her grandmother's smile, the first time she heard the wind whisper secrets, the quiet moments of her childhood. These images were warm, comforting, a haven from the daunting task ahead. But then the mirror shifted again, and she saw images of a possible future, a future without the lost light. Silverwood Valley was shrouded in permanent twilight, the trees barren, the river frozen, the people still, their faces devoid of expression. It was a bleak, desolate vision, a world devoid of memory and hope. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced her heart. The east wind's voice, though still swift, held a hint of compassion. Look closely, Elara. The past is a comfort, the future a dread. What will you choose to hold, and what will you release, to step into the unknown? Elara stared into the mirror, her mind racing. The past was sweet, but it was fading. The dark future was terrifying, but it was a possibility, not a certainty. She clutched the silver leaf, its warmth a steadying anchor. The leaf was a memory, yes, but it was also a seed of hope, a link to what he could be if the light returned. It wasn't about clinging to the past, but about using the past to build a better future. She took a deep breath, and then, with a strength she didn't know she possessed, she reached out and touched the shimmering surface of the mirror. Instead of choosing a past or a future, she chose the yakti of choosing, the yakti of moving forward. I choose neither to cling to the fading past nor to be consumed by the dreadful future, she declared, her voice ringing with newfound conviction. I choose the present moment, the path of action, to restore the lost light. I choose to carry the lessons of the past and the hope for the future, not as burdens but as guiding stars. As her hand touched the mirror, it dissolved into a shower of silver-blue sparks that swirled around her, filling her with a vibrant, invigorating energy. The east wind's hum changed, becoming a joyful, accelerating rush. Courage, Elara of Silverwood. You have faced the unknown and chosen your own destiny. You have understood that memory is not a cage, but a bridge. My path is open to you. The heart of crystal awaits at the end of the swift currents. The east wind, with a final exhilarating rush, opened into a vast spiraling tunnel that glowed faintly with the combined light of all three winds. The air here was vibrant, humming with an almost palpable energy. Elara followed, her steps light, her heart full of purpose. The tunnel spiraled downwards for a long time, the walls glowing with a soft internal luminescence. She could feel the subtle currents of the winds guiding her, nudging her forward. Finally, the tunnel opened into an enormous, breathtaking cavern. It was a place of sublime beauty and immense power. The cavern was spherical, its ceiling lost in the highest reaches of the mountain, its floor a smooth, polished surface of obsidian that reflected the ethereal light. And at its very center, suspended in the air by invisible forces, was the heart of crystal. It was not a single crystal, but a magnificent cluster of crystalline formations, each facet shimmering with a faint internal light. It pulsed with a gentle, rhythmic beat, like a slow, deep heartbeat. It was a kaleidoscope of colors, soft blues, ethereal purples, gentle greens, and faint golds, all swirling within its depths. But there's a dullness to it, a muted quality, as if a great part of its brilliance was slumbering. This, Elara knew, was the lost light, diminished, but not extinguished. She approached the heart of crystal, her eyes wide with wonder and awe. As she drew near, she felt a strong resonance with it, a pull deep within her own being. The silver leaf in her hand began to glow more brightly than ever before, its warmth spreading up her arm, connecting her to the ancient power before her. A soft, clear voice, like the tinkling of wind chimes, resonated directly in her mind, not spoken aloud. Welcome, Elara. Entensi. Kandan. You have come. The light has waited long for one such as you. Kenwaimshi. I am here to restore you, Elara whispered, her voice feeling small in the vast chamber. To bring the light back to Silverwood. The light is not lost, child, only veiled by forgetfulness, dimmed by the cold of time without nurturing, the voice of the heart of crystal replied. It requires a catalyst, a spark of pure memory, united with the breath of the world, to awaken fully once more. Wantantans. Elara looked at the silver leaf. This is the memory, isn't it? The memory of the first light, of Silverwood's true self. Indeed, the heart of crystal confirmed. It is a fragment of the primordial light, imbued with the spirit of the valley's origins. It must be returned to its source, sung into life by one who truly listens to the winds. Whoa, Nuria. Elara understood. I me understood. This was the final step, the culmination of her journey. She held the silver leaf aloft, its silver light now almost blinding, reflecting in the myriad facets of the heart of crystal. She could feel the ancient dormant power of the crystal reaching out, drawing the leaf towards it. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the essence of the three winds fill her. She felt the clarity of the north wind, the compassion of the west wind, and the courage of the east wind. And then, she began to sing. This was no ordinary song. It was a melody woven from all the ancient songs of Silverwood, a lullaby of memory, a hymn of hope, a beacon of renewal. Her voice, amplified by the resonant acoustics of the cavern and carried by the unseen currents of the winds, filled the immense space. She sang of the valley's genesis, of the first dew-kissed morning, of the vibrant colors that once danced under the full light. She sang of the stories passed down, of the laughter and tears, of the enduring spirit of her people. As she sang, she slowly extended her hand, offering the silver leaf towards the heart of crystal. The leaf, responding to her song and the crystal's call, began to glow with an incandescent brilliance. It detached itself from her hand, floating gracefully towards the heart of crystal. With a soft, shimmering thrumming, the silver leaf merged with the central core of the crystal cluster. It didn't disappear. Rather, it became one with it, a brilliant silver heart within the larger crystalline form. And then, it happened. The heart of crystal pulsed once, a deep, resonant beat that vibrated through the very rock of the mountain. Then, the muted colors within it exploded into a dazzling spectrum of light. A wave of pure, living radiance burst forth, washing over Elara, filling the cavern with an indescribable brilliance. It was not just light, it was warmth, hope, memory, and life itself, all made manifest. The light pulsed outward, growing stronger, brighter, a radiant aurora of every color imaginable. It streamed upwards, into the spiraling tunnel, rushing through the passages Elara had just traversed. She could feel it surging past her, a river of pure light, destined for the world above. The cavern itself seemed to come alive. The obsidian floor gleamed, reflecting the light in 1,000 perfect images. The air hummed with a joyful, vibrant energy. Elara stood bathed in the glorious radiance, feeling the lost light not just with her eyes, but with every fiber of her being. It was a feeling of profound belonging, of deep peace, of utter completeness. When the initial surge subsided, the heart of crystal settled into a steady, brilliant glow, its facets sparkling with a pure, vibrant light that filled the entire cavern. The voice, now stronger and clearer, resonated in her mind. "It is done, Elara. The light is awakened. Wah. The flow is restored. Go, child of Silverwood, and carry this light back to your people." Elara, overwhelmed with emotion, could only nod, tears of joy streaming down her face. She felt lighter than air, her heart overflowing. She turned, her steps now guided by the vibrant light streaming from the heart of crystal, illuminating the path back towards the surface. The journey back was entirely different. The passages, once dark and foreboding, now glowed with the soft ethereal light from within the mountain. The air was fresh, invigorating. She could still feel the presence of the three winds, but now they were not sentinels, but companions, their currents gently nudging her forward, their whispers carrying messages of gratitude and encouragement. As she ascended, she noticed subtle changes. Faint vines of glowing minerals appeared in the rock, pulsing with the newly awakened light. Tiny, phosphorescent mosses carpeted crevices, lending an otherworldly beauty to the path. Finally, after what felt like a joyful, swift ascent, she emerged from the passage beneath the frosted peaks. The sun was just beginning to rise over the distant horizon, painting the sky in hues of soft pink and gold. But even the sunrise paled in comparison to the sight before her. A pillar of pure, radiant light, shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, ascended from the very top of the frosted peaks, reaching high into the sky. It was the lost light, fully restored, shining with an intensity and beauty that surpassed anything she could have imagined. Its warmth spread across the land, melting the last stubborn remnants of frost, and chasing away the shadows that had clung to the valley for so long. She looked down towards Silverwood Valley. A wave of light, a gentle, golden warmth, was spreading across it, chasing away the muted colors, awakening the land. She could almost feel the valley breathing a sigh of relief, its ancient memories stirring, its dormant spirit reawakening. The trees, which had seemed so still and muted, now glistened with a vibrant green. The river sparkled, its waters clearer than ever. And even from this distance, she could sense the stirrings of life, the quiet joy, the returning hope. Elara stood there for a long moment, bathed in the glorious light, the silver leaf no longer in her hand, but its warmth still in her heart. She was no longer just the quiet girl from Silverwood. She was Elara, the wind listener, the singer of ancient songs, the bringer of light, the weaver of memory. She had faced the darkness, navigated the winds, and awakened the heart of the world. She turned and began the long walk home, her heart light, her spirit soaring. The path ahead was clear, illuminated by the dawn of a new day, and the radiant, ever-present glow of the lost light, shining brilliantly from the frosted peaks, a timeless beacon of hope, memory, and enduring magic for Silverwood Valley, and for all who lived within its gentle embrace. And as she walked, she hummed a soft, ancient melody, a song of memory and light, carried on the gentle morning breeze, a lullaby for a world reborn.